All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to coaching on this, spring break week. You know, we got to love this good weather. I know we're all ready for a hot selling season, especially in the Wasatch Front. Many of our markets are going to really heat up. So it's time to talk about working with sellers. And we're going to be on page 86 in the coaching manual. So grab that and let's jump right into it. We're going to go pretty quickly and be prepared to make some notes. I was thinking about, first of all, I think we all need to make sure we pivot on what we're calling our presentation. And I think we talked about this before after Alan Dalton's presentation, that we don't refer to it as a listing presentation. So we refer to it as a marketing presentation. And I think that that's more in line. I kind of liked what he said, that Shakespeare said, there was a quote about, your words should match your actions. And so that words matter and the way we communicate matters. So I think that's very true here. And we're our own worst enemy when we call our presentation a listing presentation, because anyone can list. I thought it was interesting too, that he did some research on where in the world did listing agent even come from. And it was something that that was pretty outdated and kind of an ancient concept, that you would actually go down to like the country store and put your name on a list if you were going to sell real estate. So yeah, it's time to upgrade. It's time to upgrade the lingo. So let's be the generation of realtors who do that. Yeah. So we're marketing presentation. See where it says objectives. Let me fly through those and then let me add a couple of things. One is to recognize the important segments of a presentation. That's on page 87, where you see relationship and connection, discovery, and then we go all the way through the paperwork authorization. To improve our communication, which is my way of saying the sales process. So I'd rather us be good communicators than good salespeople, even though I recognize there's a sales process to it. To remember the purpose of the presentation is ultimately achieve authorization of the agreements. Well, I want to pivot. I want to add to this a little bit. What I was trying to say here is the objective is not to go through every single thing that you brought or everything you prepared. I think that that's rigid and unflexible, that we need to be able to pivot to what we've discovered when we have discussions with folks. This is where we start to contemplate whether it's a one-step or a two-step listing presentation. Have you seen the property? How many questions do you have? Are there a lot of assumptions that are being made? Do you need more data before you can make good opinions? I mean, there's, where are we in this entire process? So let's not be rigid about making sure that we just go through everything. That's not the point. The point is to receive enough trust that we ultimately have the all the documents authorized. So I guess I would change my wording a little bit here and add a couple of things to that sentence there on number 3. To above all, remain sincere and truthful with a real focus on their unique needs. This is often a mindset adjustment where we do a lot more time of discovery than we do anything else. And I kind of learned this from my dad as a teenager when I shadowed him in the emergency room. Even though he likely already knew what the diagnosis would be, he still took a lot of time to ask a lot of questions. And I remember how sometimes it's very mundane and repetitive, but each patient there, and in our case, each seller will feel better about your commitment to them when you do slow down and take more time to ask good questions. And there's more in the manual about how we ask good questions. So we'll, that's coming, okay? To practice and rehearse our presentation in order to improve. And I think that this, will you make a note there about the pitfalls of role play, okay? So I just want to bring something to our attention. I'm great with practice, but there is something that we have to be cautious of with role play. Role play is to not practice pretending to be something that we're not. It's not pretending, to be anything other than what we're trying to be. And that's the problem with role play, is that if you really are a great presenter, then you understand your audience, and every presentation is different. and it's molded to them. And the problem with role play is that we take out the person entirely and we pretend that they're the agent that's practicing with us. So we got to be very, very careful not to sharpen that saw at all. We don't want that one sharper. I mean, that's the one we throw away. You know what I'm saying? So be careful of that. And matter of fact, that was one of my ahas as an instructor when we were doing these, a lot of, I guess, coaching or training sessions, you pair up and you role play. And I tried to remind myself, because I would see something that was an unintended consequence, so just a warning on that. We want to practice being authentic and sincere and able to pivot and adjust and be flexible with the person that we're talking to. And that's really, really critical. All right, so let's fill in the blanks. The listing presentation is a time to get to know the seller's blank. What do you think that is? How many do we have on here, Joe? I'm gonna put it in the chat. Okay. The seller's pain. Yeah. Objectives, motivation, needs. Okay. Good. Yeah. So the best answer, well, I guess the answer that I have in here is needs, but let's also put in identify problems. So remember yesterday we were talking about on sales meeting, I've heard a lot of you guys say, well, I just got to do a better job of presenting my value. And I agree with that, but value is often after the solution to a problem. And if you don't know what the problem is, of course, you're blind to any solution. Therefore, value is not realized. Okay, it's just absent. And it's absent because we don't understand the problem. So when we're talking about this listing presentation time to get to know the seller's needs, it's also, as you're discovering their need, you're identifying problems. Okay. And then offer blank would be solutions. Illustrate your unique position and obtain blank of the required paperwork. What's the word there on that one? I'd really like to know. I want you to know this one because I want this to be a part of your dialogue. So we obtain blank of the of the required paperwork. I just said it. So authorization. Authorization. So what we stay away from here are like signing. Signing is intimidating and scary, and authorization is empowering. Write that down. Authorization is empowering. Authorization is empowering. Okay. Empowering. So that's, use that. So, when we're having our dialogue with sellers and we get to that point, you'll find yourself saying, okay, John, all I need now is authorize the paperwork and we can get started. So it's authorizing the paperwork, not signing the contract. Okay. How many of you already do that? You already kind of watch that? Watch that? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's keep going. I've got some of these things like keep this in order. So although we want to be flexible, I think there's some things that are better in a particular order. See, questions before solutions. Have you ever found yourself kind of wanting to just spit out what you've been thinking about? I've got an idea and you're just excited about it. This would be jumping the gun. This would be giving a diagnosis before we show that we're discovering, properly. So we keep them in order. So we've got, questions before solutions, information before price opinion. This is a big one. We shouldn't be showing up to the property and say, well, I've got it all figured out on where your price is. I think that's dangerous. That'll backfire on you. You'll hear sellers say, "Oh, she came out and she didn't even see the property and she told us what it was worth." You're like, whoops, right? So we're touring the property and asking questions way before we give pricing opinions. Market strategies before agreements, and the reason that a lot of that is because the agreement has the cost. So the agreement has a cost. They need to know what they're getting. All right. So that would alleviate a lot of commission objections if we get these things in order. Okay. Okay, let's write down right here in this blank, and I used to have it here, guys, and I'm going to put it back the next time we do another iteration of this. But write pre-listing packet right here, pre-listing packet. So pre-listing packet. And let me just quickly tell you what some of the things I think should be in there. Okay. I think that you can have basic, so this would be a general overview market data. So overview is different, means a lot of different things to different people. I mean, I suppose if I were in Moab, I might just give all of Moab. But if I were in a neighborhood, I might just say the neighborhood. But if I were a commercial piece of property, I might compare that property to a number of different areas. You know, so what we're doing here is we're giving an overview. You don't want to go too deep here, and you want to, you know, this is headlines. Okay. The next one is maybe some marketing samples. And what I mean by this is, I think number one is I like to see marketing about you, the things that you would like to say that can be said in print that you're not going to say in person because it sounds too darn arrogant. Okay. The next one is disclosures. And the final one, which is probably the biggest one, are some questions that they want to contemplate that you're going to ask when you get there. Okay, so that's 4 things. So go backwards. Questions, disclosures, marketing. That's about you. And then market data overview. That's not an exhaustive list. And it's not like this is, you know, the all that you could ever put in a pre-listing packet. But I really like this idea of having them a little more prepared, and then and they've got some things to contemplate and think about before you get there. Any thoughts on that? How many of you are already using this? Oh yeah, sorry, Lena, you corrected me. That's so true. Yes. I still need work. See, 30 years of this, and I'm still referring to it as a listing. Yeah, let's call it pre-marketing packet. Way better. As a matter of fact, let me change that right now. My goodness. Pre-marketing packet. Yes. So what are examples of questions? Yeah, thanks, Lane. Appreciate it. So, well, I mean, we certainly want to, okay, a couple of things are your time frame, ideally, you know, wave your magic wand. Ideally, when would you prefer a closing? Are there items that we need to be sensitive about that are excluded, that are attached to the property? Do you generally have any concerns, you know, that you've been worried about in this process? Yeah, how soon, how much? Yeah. Why don't we work to, does anyone have these questions already done? So where can we find this? I'm not sure it exists, Grant. Anyone have one? Rachel, do you have one? You do? You have questionnaires, like questions that go in there? You do? Would you mind sharing your wisdom? I guess I can't unmute you. I'm asking you to unmute, but it's not unmuting you. Oh, there you go.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, there you go.
In my pre-listing packet, I have a homeowner's questionnaire, and in that questionnaire, it asks all sorts of questions about the house in particular. Age of the home, age of the windows. It even goes into which title company they want to use, whether or not they want a Supra, whether or not they want us to disclose the multiple offers to another buyer or another listing agent or buyer's agent.
I like that one.
I also have a seller's expectation sheet that just essentially, from a range of 1 to 5, what's most important to you. Shoes off when people are there, having digital marketing in certain ways, having a Matterport tour. So I have them go through and fill out the things that are most important to them in that regard. I don't necessarily have a list of questions regarding their goals and their needs, because that's usually a conversation that I have with them, where I communicate that.
Yeah, maybe it's here are a couple of things, but I'd like to discuss when we get there. So contemplate this. Maybe that's the way. That's the tone of that question, because I agree with you. I mean, we don't want to just circumvent or try to feel like we're speeding up things that need to be paused and take more time. Are you okay to share some of that questionnaire with everybody?
Yeah, they're I think that we have them in our dot loop, so I can send them to you through dot loop, I think.
Okay.
They might be in the intranet, but I would have to have Kim Kirks answer that for me.
Okay. I'll tell you what, guys, if you send it, Rachel, I'll take a look at it. And if there's any additions, pivots, or emphasis or things like that, maybe I'll make some recommendations and we'll do this next week. Is that okay? That sound good?
Yeah, that sounds
okay.
Wonderful.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rachel. Once again, really appreciate you guys joining coaching and what you give back to our team and our Brookshire family. I guess this is going to come out a little bit wrong, but I can't be expected to have the answer to every question. This is a team effort. And although no one loves you more than I do, you can love them the same, but you don't love them more. Okay. But, that is the fuel in my tank to discover all of this. And that's what's the driving force behind all of these things that we talk about on these coaching calls. But I do appreciate your input, Rachel. It means a lot to me, and I know everybody on the call. Would you guys agree? Yes.
I also have a nightly rental questionnaire that I give to sellers, because we have a lot of nightly rentals here. So every nightly rental that we sell, we have a questionnaire that we have them fill out that's pretty thorough. And then we give it to the buyers as well. But I think Park City has that in your seller's property condition disclosure, where we made ours up.
Okay. Yeah, good point. All right. Well, we'll put that on the shelf for next week. Okay. Thank you. So pre-marketing packet. My goodness. Wow. Pre-marketing packet. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving on then. And thanks, Jill, for the input there. You guys read the chats. There's some really good, tips as we're going through all of this. So actually, let me move my chat out of the way a little bit. Okay. So, a couple things when you're working on leads and you're trying to get an appointment scheduled. Matter of fact, I kind of like to use the alternate close technique, which is a term that Tom Hopkins used to use. When you're closing for an appointment, you give two choices, which would be better for you, Wednesday at 7 or Thursday at 6. So if you want to put alternate close as kind of a nice way to get an appointment, which would be better for you. Frankly, we don't really care which ones works, but either one is a victory. So that's why it's kind of a nice way to phrase the question, which would be better for you. So that's a nice way to get the appointment set. So decision makers ideally are present. I know that sounds really basic, but how many times have I done a presentation? I get there and find out we've got multiple owners, and only one of them is in the discussion. So you're already kind of behind the 8 ball, and that's challenging. Of course, your research and preparations are complete. Let's not wing it on listing or marketing presentations. Let's generally they're interested in selling. Who knows about their time frame yet? We can probably discover that as we go. The required agreements and disclosures are prepared enough that we are ready to go through them. And if I pause on this for a second, you guys, if you've been a part of coaching at all, you know that I really like using the forms as a visual to present from, because it shows the complexity of what we're doing. I would lay them out and actually go through them. So a lot of that could be the REPC. And I think I'll come back to that in just a second. The appointments I think we need at least an hour, although most of my appointments would go longer than that. I really try to take the time. And then samples. I hope you bring samples of marketing. one of my, and I still a little old school here, but I like 3-ring binder and keeping samples on hand, and I just carry them around with me. And yes, you can access a lot of things digitally, but that has challenges too, where you need internet connection, or you're going to have to download them and whatever. I'm fine with all of that, but have samples, because there's a really nice kind of closing technique with samples, because you can say, which one of these do you really like? I kind of like this one better, but wanted your opinion. And now they're saying, well, I kind of like this one. And, and you go, great. And then you write that down. You say, well, okay, we'll use this style flyer or this style of digital campaign. And then they're involved in the decision. So I like that a lot, because they're choosing and you're empowering them. Okay. Back to the agreements. I'll tell you what, in the chat, answer this question for me. What sections of the REPC would you want to emphasize and pull out and discuss in a listing presentation? What sections of the REPC? And I said listing presentation again. Holy cow. Which one? Which ones? So I got the REPC here in front of me. I mean, there's some real musts here. So perhaps I would say something like, what we have here is the standard real estate purchase contract that residential property is used for residential property. A licensed real estate agent is required to use this form. And that's your lead in. Okay. So there's a few things that can guide some questions. Now, perhaps they show up in the pre-marketing packet already in this questionnaire, but let's go through them. So Sally, let's see. We've got off disclosures, the parts of the REPC that protect the seller, included items 2, 7, and 8. Okay, so let's start off with Ron. I think Ron's, probably right. Although we may talk about earnest money if they bring it up and how that works, because that's mentioned right in the first paragraph, but we should go through 1.1. This in the last week, we had a Tesla charger in the garage, which the seller thought they could take and believed they could take. And then we had a ski boot warmer system that the seller had already taken, frankly. And the buyer, moved in and the system's gone. Turns out that this boot system was made by the son's company, and it was personal to them, and they unratcheted it and unbolted it from the wall of the garage. If I remember right, it could heat like 24 ski boots at one time, dry them. So yeah, and Craig's comment there about problem areas, inclusion, and possession. I mean, all of these things should be part of our marketing discussion. And see what it does. It brings to light the problem. And then you are showing the complexities to the problem and solution. And while you do that, value happens. Value is realized. And then commission is substantiated, right? So it's in that order. So if you're not making the purchase contract part of your presentation, you're missing it. You're missing it big time. Okay. So let's go through one. I mean, I probably go through, 1, 2, 1, 3, that's excluded items. If I've got a water discussion that needs to happen, certainly there's a cue to do that. And then I can talk about possession, because ideally, how much time do you need to move out? This is where we negotiate this. You can see the difference in upon recording. That's really tough on sellers to be out by recording. So maybe that's something that could be negotiated, and we would bring that up. And this is where they kind of explain how much help they have or how long it's going to take them to move out. And this is the human nature of it, the family, the sensitivity of it is going to come out here, where you can show empathy and understanding, and then get a calendar out and show how this works. Where do we sign that settlement? Where does it fund? And how long that can take according to the contract? And then when does it record? and then how does possession work, and that goes after. So look at those things line up, and then you can explain that, right? This is good stuff, right? This is good. So then we get into title insurance and clearing title, and their promise and guarantee to do so, and how that works could be brought up. And then we get to 7, and 7's a big one because it's a big long list. And and this is important for us to get this prepared prior to going on the market. Then we get into conditions and contingencies, as you know, and how that works. I'm sure there'll be questions about what the buyer is going to inspect. I would not leave the marketing presentation without reviewing 10.2 and 10.3. So that's a lot here to go over. You certainly could look at walkthrough, inspection, and then you got your dates and back to the calendar. So, if someone is really, if they'll give you the time and you can show the complexities, you're going to show value just naturally. Okay, let's go to the diagram here, and this is kind of how I see a marketing presentation going. And I kind of drew over here in my notes, guys. I kind of drew a timetable of where I would spend most of my time. Which one of these do I want to have a lot of time on, and which one do I want to spend the least amount of time? If I only had an hour, how would this break down? And clearly, these 3 should get most of my time. So this is the connection phase. We find commonality. This is probably this is anything but real estate usually here. Then this is all those questions. Now, maybe this is coming up in the pre-marketing packet questionnaire. Maybe this is something we're doing in person and a combination, but we discover big time commitment for discovery. We certainly tour the property, get to know the property. And there's a technique here that when they say something that's important, you write it down. Just write it down. You're at a restaurant. There's 12 of you at the table. The waiter comes along and asks everyone's order, and they don't write it down. Are you impressed or are you worried? Are you impressed or are you worried?
Usually worried.
Yes, Todd. Usually worried because you're thinking, you know what? They're gonna get it wrong. I mean, impressive that you would attempt to, just remember everyone's order, but you're worried, right? So think about that from the seller's point of view. They're telling you some really things that are important to them. This is a cut. We did this fireplace. We hired the contractor. We selected the stone. We selected the marble and the mantle and the stain. We've selected also all the lighting that is around because we want it to be a centerpiece. Okay. And then you go, oh, that's really nice. Okay. Let's go look at the deck. Right. That's missing it. We write it down. Tell me more about it. Tell me, so when I get asked, and then you're writing it down. Every time, write it down. You ask, they state, you write it down. Now, later on in the presentation, we're going to repeat back what they said. So we better have good notes, right? Better have good notes. Okay. So let's be very, very heavy in the time commit in the beginning. This is where we do statistical review. This is where our CMA comes into handy here, and any kind of comparables or data. This is where we review data. Then we start getting to solutions, ideas, concepts. We make a plan. Write that right here. We make a plan. Underneath solutions is we make a plan. Okay, we make a plan. I think we've got to, for the while, I didn't have this in, but the better way and the Brookshire way is we've got to answer a question about equity. They're going to want to know, and we need to be able to say, and so we better be able to answer the question about equity. And then we get into the authorizing the paperwork, and then we transition into the service of the listing. right now, you know, I've been trying to remind everybody, don't allow the MLS clear cooperation rule of 5 days dictate how you market a property. Okay, it takes longer than 5 days to prepare a listing for the market in most cases. Most cases. And I think that we're in too big of a hurry to get those listings on. Okay. So, you know, part of that authorizing the paperwork is explaining clear cooperation. And I mentioned this yesterday in sales meeting. What a weird time we're in, where we now have to dig into the complexities of how the MLS works. And we actually present in the marketing presentation to a seller what the rules are for clear cooperation. Okay. So I can see that coming in here with problems and solutions. We're going to be talking about that here as we get the home ready and we're making our plan. Part of our plan is the timing, right? That's the timing. And then we can come in, that tees up with clear cooperation. Okay, that's where we come in with the rules. If you wanna, you guys know where to find that? Here it is. Oh, whoops! I just got booted out, but and I've got too many screens up. Let's see if I can I move this over? It's under help, you guys. It's under help, and then here's clear cooperation, the website. When you click on that, then you've got your samples. Okay, and I would explain this. Go on the MLS. You know, this is this is my version. I was talking to an agent yesterday, and I said, I know you guys have heard this analogy before, but when my wife got a gallbladder surgery and the doctor brought out the 8.5 by 11 color pictures of the camera that went in her abdomen, you know, and all of a sudden I'm getting like, wow, this is a complicated surgery. See, it's complicated. And by the way, my wife hates that story. So don't go ratting me out, you guys. Okay. But, you know, it was like, wow, it's not just surgeries. It's, you know, there's a common everyday surgery. Yeah, we buy and sell houses all the time, don't we? It's every day. Yeah, but they're really, really complicated. And if you don't show the complexity, then the problem isn't realized. Therefore, the solution is not even contemplated, and value is floating around, right? Unrealized. Okay, so same kind of basic pattern here. So that's where I would put that clear cooperation. You know, I'm going to inject something. I know we're on sellers, but when it comes to buyers, I would okay. So I'm at the office the other day, and well, I won't say who, I guess, but one of our agents said, "So what do you do in a buyer presentation?" And I said, "Well, here, come follow me." And he goes, "Where are we going?" I said, "We're going to the conference room." He goes, "Why are we going to the conference room?" I said, "Because I need a big table." He said, "Oh, what do we need a big table for?" I said, "Well, you asked me what I would do, and I'm going to literally show you what I'm going to do." Okay. So I grabbed the forms manual, and then I have all my loose, I've got some loose addendums that are not yet in there, and I laid them all out. And I said, this is what we're up against as buyers right now when it comes to trying to win the bid. And here's how it relates to sellers. It's visual samples that show complexity. And when you show that, then you can talk through the solutions, and it's a beautiful thing, right? Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate you, and really, really grateful for her input, you guys. I'll make sure, God, what should I do for Rachel? Give her dinner for two. There's a really nice restaurant in Moab that she actually took us to when we first went down there. So maybe I'll do that for her. But I really appreciate her helping out with all this. Okay, let's get off and move on to the next thing here. We've got begin your presentation by building a blank of trust. So obviously that's relationship of trust. So it's anything but real estate. That's kind of where we have here. And the next one is, this demonstrates that you are concerned about the seller and what's best. I think that should be what's best for them. That's my notes. What's best for them. We need to delete this in right here. Okay. And then we come down to the next one. The next step is to ask good, obviously, questions and discover. And if we could, what I've done in my book, guys, I lined out customers and put buyer seller. Okay. So it reads like this. The next step is to ask good questions and discover buyers and sellers' needs before any recommendations are made. You're right, Leslie. I know. If I would have had Leslie help me edit, I would have a lot less edits. Okay, the next one is, the right questions help you gather information. That's gather right here, and show you care, and ensure that you will give complete solutions. So we're gathering better information, we show we care, and we have more accurate and complete solutions. So important. When I was in my 20s, so I got in real estate, guys, when I was 21 and I looked 18. And I was very, very, very energetic. Although I was rookie of the year in the company I was in that year, my first year, I made a lot of mistakes. I was very, very excited about, especially when it came to listing presentations or marketing presentations, what I would want to say. And it took quite a while for me to slow down. Thanks, Julie. I still look 18. Okay. Now, if my wife were right here, she goes, well, he acts 18 too a lot. So, but you know, I think that it's harder for the male gender to slow down and think about connection and communication. And we're a little more focused on finish lines and objectives than we are maybe more of the relationship kind of communication piece. So just a word of advice to please slow down and make sure that you have a really great understanding. Let me stop sharing for just a second. Raise your hand if you've ever done the write on a piece of paper a word, and we've done the question game. Just raise your hand. Let me see. Well, I don't have a lot of people are not on video. So just think about there's a method to the madness here. So let's say you write down a word. Let me tell you what I wrote down. I wrote down, hi, Todd. I wrote down Taylor 815 CE acoustic guitar. Okay, that's what I wrote down. And again, method to my madness here. So then the game is to ask questions to see if you can discover what the word is. And the person can ask any question they want to. And the least amount of questions asked wins the game. Okay? So it puts an emphasis on asking great questions. So what happens is we get questions like, well, is it a person, place, or thing? It's a horrible question, by the way, but in this game. And someone will say, you know, is this something that you can eat or someplace you can go? Is it a play? You know, there's all these kind of really big questions, bad questions, okay? Because they don't hit the heart of the matter. So the best question would be, would you mind explaining your word in great detail? So I started explaining it. I said, well, it's an instrument. You can play it. The rules are you can't say what it is and you can't spell it. So you say something like, well, you know, you can play it. It sounds amazingly beautiful. It's not only an incredible instrument, it's like a piece of art. Okay. And so someone will write down, and then they'll go, is it a guitar? That's what is it a guitar? And this is what I'm talking about. We jumped the gun. Well, yeah, it's a guitar, but you still missed what it was, right? You still missed it. So be careful when you're asking questions and you're discovering, you know, we should get in a habit of saying think more like, Tell me more about that. Could you be a little bit more specific? Don't make assumptions if you can help it. If you come across something that's insensitive to them, I think, and I brought this up because I had a memory of one where I was reluctant. It looked like they had tears in their eyes. And I just wasn't sure if maybe I read that wrong, but I didn't want them to be uncomfortable. So I just softly said, you know, are you okay? It seems like you're a little emotional about this. Is it something that you want to talk about? And I'm trying to respect privacy, and some things are just not meant to be said. But you know what it was? Did you know what it was? They kept looking over at the dining room table, and they would look back at me, and we'd ask, and they said, the last time I saw my dad alive, he was at that table in that room. And it just hit me that I'm talking about selling this house. And that was hard for them. You know, you're like, wow. And, you know, here I want to talk about data and contracts, you know, like put it in perspective. But good questions will sometimes hit a nerve. And I think that's why I'm telling you that. And it will sometimes hit something that is sensitive. So we should be empathetic and understanding and have heart. I've always said we have to lead with heart and then back it up with the highest level of professionalism. But let's not mistake anything here. It's heart first. It's caring first. People matter and relationships matter. And you can tell I'm very passionate about that. And that's kind of how I look at the question, issue. Go practice that game. Write down any word with friends or family and see who can ask the least amount of questions to discover what the word is. It's kind of a fun, and you'll see some things come out in that. Okay, we're down now to the other paragraph there. Following the discovery phase of the presentation, share advice and present the blank that our tools and services will provide the seller. So this is solutions. So write solutions there. It is critical to explain the blank of your tools and services. Okay. Write benefits. And I want you to make a note out into the margin there. Speak the language of benefit. Okay. And hey, Todd, mute yourself if you don't mind, just until you want to talk. Okay, there you go. I think, no, you got it. I'm sorry. You're good. So I had some background noise there. I don't know who that is. So speak the language of benefit. When you speak the language of benefit, you speak the language of wisdom because you speak the language of why. I'll say that again. We speak the language of benefit. Okay, we speak the language of wisdom because we're speaking the language of why. Okay, someone's driving and is unmuted. So just make sure you mute yourself, you guys. If you're, I don't know, Joe, if you're still on, maybe you could help me find whoever that is.
Yeah, everyone's muted. I'll keep my eyes out though.
Okay, all right.
Whack-a-mole.
Okay, right. I know it's totally the game we play. So look, knowledge is nice, but wisdom is why it matters. And benefit is wisdom. Benefit is why. So if you're talking about something and you say, well, we use Moxie or we use Real Scout. They have no idea what in the world that is. That's not the proper. We speak why something matters. We speak benefit. Okay, so we'll do more of that in a minute. Now, down at the bottom of the page, you need to memorize everything in that left column. So memorize these. You should be able to give them back at a moment's notice at any time. Everything we do at Brookshire for a seller client ties back in to those core benefits. Highest possible price. The reason we have exposure and not just any kind of exposure, but professional photography, video, and all alike, and the collateral pieces is because we are after what? Highest possible price or highest net at closing. That's the reason. That's why we have what we have. If we're not connecting it to the benefit, then it's possibly get lost in translation. Because marketing and selling a property is a hassle for everyone, we want the quickest possible sale. Okay. So again, back to a core benefit. We want to increase the chance of having the property sell, which is crazy to think in this market, but we should practice that. Sometimes properties don't sell. All right. And then the least amount of legal risk, which is my personal favorite. And it often gets overlooked, because nobody knows the complexities. They don't know the problems. They don't know the solutions. So show them the complexities of the problems. And there's many of them in the legal realm. Okay. So when we're speaking the language of benefit, why are we doing all this? We go through the reps. We want to lower the amount of legal risk you have in liability and transaction. We say that. So our objective is to lower the amount of liability in your transaction, and we move on, right? We inject this into the conversation. There's legal risk in every real estate transaction. One of my primary responsibilities is to lower the risk that we can have or our exposure. And so how do we go about doing that? Well, there's a lot of disclosures, and frankly, we have to understand the complexities of what's written in the contracts and frankly, what's not in the contracts. And then we can even talk about how amazing it is to have someone like, since Mike and Craig are on the screen, we've got great brokers like Mike and Craig as resources. This is a great time to inject this, that we're surrounded by a group of professionals that have decades of experience, and that an agent can leverage that experience for the benefit of their buyer client at any call, at a moment's notice, right? Make a call. And one thing I'm really, really proud about our management team is we don't miss calls, you guys, and we get on those calls now. You need something, we answer, right? Thanks, Brooke, for acknowledging. I was driving down the highway and helped Brooke with a transaction just a couple of days ago. But all of our managers do this, and they're fantastic. We don't hear complaints at all from agents saying, I can't get a hold of a manager or a broker. But think about injecting that in. See the core benefit, least amount of legal risk. So you can inject that. Look, we've got great brokers. We've got an in-house attorney. We help us lower legal risk. And also, gone are the days where we're going to wait around for UAR to make a form to protect our buyer clients or our seller clients. We're not doing that. We need a form. We're going to make it. And we have the resources and the ability to do so. So really great, tangible benefit. Speak the language of benefit. You speak the language of wisdom and why. And now you're talking like a professional and a surgeon level. Okay. There's other things in the other column there that I think that we should remember. You know what? I think I'm going to put a pin on this one now. Any comments? Mike, Craig, got anything to add to this discussion about our marketing presentation? Craig?
There is a difference in brokerages, and agents love to talk about the difference in themselves and what they can do for the seller, and rightfully so. But also remember that there is a difference in brokerages, and really doesn't matter how good the agent is with another company. If they're with a lousy company, or a company that doesn't keep records like we do or have the legal backing that we have, then the seller is more liable and takes on more liability. And so it's important to go with a good brokerage just as much as it is important to go with a good agent.
Very well said. Guys, go to page 78, and this is turn to page 78. We already talked about this one, but what Craig is mentioning here It's part of our ecosystem that Chris Stewart had mentioned in convention. Page 78, personal deliverables, affiliate deliverables, brokerage deliverables. That's the triangle of what I deliver to a client. And right next to that, write ecosystem. Frankly, I like that. I think that's said better. And to Craig's point, when they hire you, they get all the benefits of the Berkshire Hathaway brokerage. It would break my heart to think that someone's not talking about that, because there's so much commitment made and so much money spent. The Ronies, frankly, are like, if this were a sports team, the Ronies have authorized the expense for us to win at every level. They're the ones committing the dollars to having this team. And to think that we would do a listing presentation without explaining the power of Berkshire Hathaway and what it means and what the benefit is to our client would just break my heart, because it'd be a travesty, I think, to not have that be amplified. So ecosystem, and thank you, Craig, for that. Mike, anything to add from your perspective?
No, my thought was very close to yours in that, if you are doing a presentation and you're not leveraging Berkshire Hathaway while you're doing it, I think you're making a big mistake. I would never advocate that you would lead with Berkshire Hathaway, because it's in my opinion, it's the agent first, right? But that second piece, that backing, the marketing support, the legal support, the broker support, that's all really, really important stuff, and it's valuable. So if you're out there arguing for a $50,000 fee, and every day it becomes a much more difficult argument to make sure you're incorporating the brokerage and how we help the client, how we service the client, how we back you guys up. Very important.
Thanks, Mike. I'll add to that. Remember, we had a discussion about it's not the instrument, it's the player. So this is why Mike is saying it's more natural and better, I think, to lead off with the fact that you are the professional. So see, it's not the tool, right? It's the contractor. It's not the instrument, it's the player. It's not the surgical tool either. It's the surgeon. And you are that. And if you ever feel like you're not that yet, then all you got to do is improve your morning routine to include study and practice and rehearse and be a student always. And you'll continue to raise your game until you feel like you're a high-level surgeon. We've got 2 more minutes. Would you go to page 92? There's a blank space there, and I'm going to give you what I think is changed in our fast-paced market. So this is to try to cut off at the pass anybody who might say something like, well, the house will sell in a weekend. Okay. And it's going to go too quickly. So page 92, there's just some space there in the in it to win it. So it's a great place to write a list. So let's write them down really quick. And here's the question. What has changed in the fast-paced market with incredibly low inventory? That's the question. So what's changed for a listing agent? Okay. Number one, researching buyers or vetting buyers. This was, frankly, we would take whatever was given to us. There was a letter, that was enough. It's not enough today. We're having to research these buyers. We're having to reach out to the loan officer, reach out to the agent to ask questions, to make sure that we are truly picking the best buyer. So what's changed? Listing agent, marketing agents are now required to research and vet buyers on a level they've never done before. Number two, the complexity of the contract terms and language. So we've had 6 new addendums in 6 months, escalation clauses, cash above appraisal, non-refundable earnest money, disclosures about strategies and how to be warned about how they can be dangerous. Number 3, preparations prior to marketing. And underneath that, it's understanding MLS policy. So preparations prior to marketing. So in other words, we're not just putting a house on the market and then we get more and more prepared as the listing goes on. No, not in this market. That's changed. We don't hit the market till we're ready. So the preparations are done pre-market, not as we go on so we don't hit the market unprepared and then get prepared. Okay, that's the third thing. Fourth thing, there's two more. Pricing. Pricing is a moving target. And to make assumptions and predictions about price is very challenging right now. Yes, thanks, Brooke, for knowledge. So we have to look at pendings in a different way. We're taking assumptions about how much over market these listings may have gone for. So pricing is a challenge. Last one, appraisal challenges. Appraisal challenges. Okay, I'm gonna go back through those again, okay? So the question is, what has changed for a marketing agent in a fast-paced market with low inventory? What has changed? Researching and vetting buyers, number one. Number two, complex contract terms. 3, preparations prior to marketing and understanding MLS policy. 4, pricing a property. 5, appraisal challenges. Okay, that's the 5. Okay. All right, guys, that's a lot of good information. Thank you so much for being the kind of agent who dedicates themselves to self-improvement and the Brookshire way of being the better professional. I, for one, am very proud of each of you. I try to remind you all the time, your clients are lucky to have you, very lucky to have you. And never forget that. You should go with confidence that you've got a great understanding of the business and a lot of resources around you. On behalf of Craig and Mike and Kevin Cameron and Kevin Larson and Sharon, and Kim, I mean, all of our brokers and all the leadership team, we love you guys. We're proud of you. It's an honor to work with you. We're the best brokerage for a reason. And there are a lot of ingredients in that recipe, so we have a lot to be grateful for. Thank you very, very much for being a high-level professional. Let's continue to have a better view of the industry and continue to operate it the Brookshire way. Okay. All right. We'll sign off. Joe, you can stop recording.